Well, good afternoon. This is Ken Warchol here, and I'm going to be doing a hive opening for the Worcester County beekeepers that came out of our bee school. And we're going to go over what you should be doing in a hive inspection. And before we start, we're going to explain how to light a smoker and keep it going. One of the big problems I find with new beekeepers is they light it up, they want to do it in 2 seconds, and they get into the hive. They get into the hive and the smoker goes out. You never want to be in the hive without a smoker that's lit and going, otherwise you could be in trouble. So let's do that here. And of course I use, as most know, grade A pine needles, kiln dried, and this is the way. You put a little bunch of pine needles into your smoker, take a match, and then you add some more and get some good charcoals going. It's crucial that you get good charcoals going so this smoker, if you put it down and don't use it for 3 minutes, continues to work. Otherwise, it'll die out and you'll be in deep water. So it takes about 5 minutes to light a smoker properly and keep it going. You just want to push down lightly, not smother the flame, so that, like I say, you have some charcoals going when you go in your hive. You'll notice a lot of smoke. Again, that's the charcoal, the pine needles at the bottom burning, creating charcoals. And you want nice dry pine needles. Wet pine needles will often smother out. The wet pine needles will smother out the flame. They won't catch, and you'll be also in trouble. So nice dry pine needles, take them, dry them out in the sun, and you'll have them. Especially in the fall when the pine needles are falling, that's when to get your pine needles off of the roads, in a pine grove or somewhere in a pine grove. And now, most of you probably started your packages in April, even March, a few, April, and then the rest in May. So everybody's got hives that are at different levels at this point. But I'm going to hit for the middle, and what we're going to open up is a package also. But in this package, the frames are all built out, so this may be ahead of where you are with yours if you used foundation. So we're going to try to discuss that because it's a difference. With built-out comb, it's immediate laying that the queen can lay in. With foundation, those bees, the bees in the hive, have to build out the wax foundation before the queen can start laying, and that further delays. And they have to build out 10 frames and then 10 more frames. That takes a lot of sugar syrup. You have to keep feeding your hive with sugar syrup, whereas with built-out frames, not so much. With built-out frames, the queen can start laying right away. They don't have to build wax. She can go as fast as the cluster is big. Keep in mind that they can only go at a certain pace because the colder weather this spring, they couldn't raise as much brood as if we had warm weather, because with cold weather, they can only keep so much at 93 degrees. And that's what in this hive, that temperature, even today, 70 something degrees, inside that hive it's at 93 where the brood is, and they keep that warm so that the brood can hatch. So you notice how long it's taken me to light this smoker, so that it's going to be ready here when I go into the hive, and it's not going to go out on me. Plenty of pine needles now. There's some good charcoals going, and this smoker is ready to go. So let's go into the hive and see what's going on with this package that was put onto foundation. At this point, I've also added frames of brood to this hive to strengthen it up, because I have many overwintered hives. To keep them from swarming, I took out frames of brooding bees and adding them to the cluster, so the hive here is a little more advanced than what you're going to see in yours. But we'll talk about that as we progress. Now when you open the cover, you want to give them a little smoke on top. Here, this is the honey super, which we're going to take off because they're just going to be coming up in this honey super once the nectar flow starts. We have some, for the most part, with a weaker hive, they're not going to collect like with some of my strong overwintered hives. So as you can see, I've got a honey excluder, a queen excluder. Some call it a honey excluder, but I don't believe it. Gently, you want to take that off because this keeps the queen from going up into my honey super. So when I go to take the honey off, I don't find the queen with a lot of baby bees. So now, give them a little smoke here, and we'll see how they are today. Now we go to the outside frame, and very gently, you want to pry that outside frame out. And why the outside frame? So you don't squeeze your queen. She's less likely to be out here on the edge. You gently pull out the frame. Oh, that's all new capped. That's all new capped honey. Wow. You can see here. This is a surprise, actually. They brought in nectar and capped it nice light. You can see here. Mmm. Delicious. Oh, it's a nice taste. Many, many different flowers that could be part of this. Russian olive, dandelions, and early maple somewhat, although it's kind of cold, you notice. So they've got a nice store of honey in this colony here. The queen's not on this, so I can set it down. And next, when you inspect your hive, it's good to go along frame by frame and have somebody recording notes as to what's in the hive, what's in that particular frame. So on the outside, they haven't come out too much yet, but they definitely... Now here we see a frame of bees. There's honey. This is honey that was given to them when the package was shaken in, but they do have some new pollen in there. And you can notice here, as you're looking, it's mostly all worker bees, but see the drones? The larger bee here, these are drones. Those are the male bees, and you don't want too many of them. What you're looking for in your inspection, obviously first and foremost with new packages, is your queen. Is she dynamic? Is she laying mostly all worker brood? Or is she laying a lot of drones? Because often one of the mistakes that people get, they get oftentimes a drone layer, a queen that hasn't been mated, laying all drones. So you don't want to see a lot of drones, more drones than worker bees. You should be seeing 90% worker bees and only about 10% most of drones. So they're bringing in nectar because I have not fed sugar syrup. You can see the fresh nectar here. They're complementing the honey they got. The nectar.
Tilted in the sun so it's shining.
You can see they're glistening. Don't mistake that for larva, or that's fresh nectar that's being brought in. And I'm guessing that there's some down the road here, some Russian olive from what I was tasting in the honey there, that capped honey frame. So they're filling everything up here, and it's good that I put on a super. Even though it's a package, it was put on built-out cones. So this hive is progressing. Here's one with pollen. Oh, that bee just took off here. We'll find some more pollen frames here. So you'd record on there in your notebook what you're seeing. So next week when you go in, you know what you had and you know what's been added or detracted. So you can tell if there's a nectar flow or is there a little dearth, meaning a period there's no nectar coming in and they've eaten it up. So here you can see a frame that's on the outside and starting to have some larva. I'll have my associate here hold this for me. I want to point out to you, the larva is eggs are laid, and then the tiny larvae here you can see swimming in a whitish substance. That's bee bread. What that is honey and pollen they chew up, the nurse bees, and they feed. Once the egg hatches after 3 days, they feed the larvae, and you can see tiny ones, and as they get older, you can see they continue to grow and to fill out the cells. And in 7 days, they cap those cells. And in 14 days later, after the 7 days of capping, 14 days under the capping is larva, late larva, and pupa. And then we'll see some hatching bees, I'm sure, as we progress going through the hive. Here you can see drones. See the big bullet shape? That's what you want to look for, are these bullet shape. If you're seeing a whole, all bullet shape cells and no flat level capped cells, that means you may have a drone layer. And you should call somebody, a mentor, or put in for a bee inspection. But this is a frame where the queen has just been here because there's all eggs and larvae, young larvae swimming. See the white milky substance you're looking at down at the little baby larvae are swimming in. And they're feeding on that. The nurse bees can feed them also, but oftentimes they leave the bee bread and they swim in it and they consume it. And the nurse bees have to continually, for 7 days, continue to feed. It's a tremendous job that the nurse bees do. Just like nurses here today in COVID-19 are working hard, these nurse bees are working very hard to keep their young fed. So it's a perfect frame. I love to see something like that. Honey, you see some pollen. You see pollen in the yellow, nice yellow pollen that's been brought in. So they're getting the honey, the pollen, and nearby they're feeding the bees. What a well planned out frame. They planned everything close for the nurse bees to be able to use. So let's take another frame here and go and put this back. On a nice warm day like today, you can keep a hive open over 60 degrees and the sun out warm. This brood isn't going to chill. But don't go in on a colder day and keep a frame with brood, young brood like that, especially on cap. Otherwise you'll chill the brood and they will die. So always choose a nice sunny day. You notice how calm the bees are. But there's a trick to it. Work slowly, gently, don't rattle them. And they see that I'm not hurting them. They're very gentle. Now here's a nice, beautiful frame of capped brood. So you look at that, it's all capped and uncapped. You notice they're all flat. Those that are worker bees, capped, and here's the drones. Because this hive is building towards swarming, they know they need drones, so a certain percentage of drones are created. But another nice frame with honey, pollen, capped brood. Over here, you notice when you want to move the bees, watch what happens as I gently tap them with the back of my hand. Here, I'll have Doug hold this, and you'll notice I'll gently tap the back of my hand, and watch. Notice how they move for you, so you can see if there's any puncture marks, any sunken cappings. When I span this frame, I want to look for sunken cappings, puncture marks that might indicate something going wrong. And if you do see that, call a mentor or the bee inspector to find out. You don't need to know what's going on. You know that once a cell is capped, it shouldn't be uncapped till the bee is hatching. And as a result of that, if you see a puncture mark or sunken capping, that's something wrong. And then you probe it. You take a little toothpick, probe in there, see what it is. Do you get brown, ropey substance? Do you get a white, liquidy substance? But here, with the uncapped larva, notice how nice C-shape. Nice C-shape, glistening, no yellow, no brownish looking tinge to them. They're in a C-shape. They're not contorted in any other shape. Because if you see them contorted or brown or yellow, that means something's wrong. That's abnormal. This is normal. So you want to always take time when you examine the frames to see, because sometimes it's only 1 or 2 puncture marks you see in the cells, and that indicates the beginning of some trouble. So if you catch it early, you can bring the hive back to its normal situation. So now let's take a look in another frame here. We'll take a look at the other side here. You notice they're on the brood here to keep it warm. You notice they're keeping it nice and warm because that it was away from the sun. Now watch what happens when I gently touch them. They move away from me. They love the tender loving care of the gentle touch. And you can see how they move for me? They don't mind. Feels so good. If you ever haven't done that yet, try it. Take your glove off and just very gently touch with the back hand lightly. Don't squeeze them. But see how they're moving for me? So that frame looks beautiful. That's what you want to see. That's going to bring you thousands of bees, new bees, in a couple of weeks. Now we go to our third frame. Now you recorded 2 frames of bees and brood here in this hive so far, and it's a package. So this hive has advanced itself pretty quick because of the added bees, of course, and because the warm weather's now come, so they can expand the brood nests. 4 weeks ago it was cold. They could only expand so far. Here again, another, and I'm going to show you. You're going to see a queen cell here that no larva in it, but they're getting ready. You can see white capped, like a white mottled wax here on this cup. You can see, but when you look inside, you can see there's no egg, no larva, but they're thinking maybe about swarming, or there could be with one cell superseding the queen. So you always want to look for that, because if you get a supersedure, here's a nurse bee in feeding the young larva. You can see head in. There's another one. They're feeding the larva bee bread. And you can see the pollen, the honey. You notice how the pattern on the frame. Honey at the top, pollen underneath, and then all the brood. This is a perfect example of the bee's organization.
Ken, is this a queen cell or
No, that's a
drone?
drone. That's a drone.
Okay.
See the difference between this queen cup right here, how big, and see the little bullet. See the little bullet shape? You can see them all over the frame. They are creating drones, but it's not exceptional. Those drones, that's a correct amount for this time of year, especially where, you know, they're thinking for swarming. On the other side, likewise, you can look in there, and you should see eggs or young larvae, and if you tip it there, you can see there, she's continually, once they hatch out, she fills the frame back up. And that's what a good queen should do, is fill the frame back up with eggs and larvae once the larva hatches, because bees are dying at a fast rate. Every 6 weeks a bee dies, so they need to replace the numbers. So you always have to have bees hatching in all stages. We're going to take that frame now and go to the next frame, and we're going to show you some hatching bees.
Eggs.
Beautiful. It's hard to get the sun in the cell so that you can see it.
Now,
You know how the cells are slightly inverted?
you notice how well behaved these bees are? They're looking up at me. You can see them all lined up with their eyes looking up at me, seeing what I'm doing. Look at them in rows, straight across, eyes facing up at me and saying, "Who is this guy? Who is this guy that they're filming?" So now let's look at the next frame. Another perfect example of a frame that's full of brood. I'm looking for puncture marks, sunken cappings, but I'm finding nice larvae all on the outer perimeter. See how you got cap brood and cap brood? These hatched out just recently, and now you've got eggs and larvae. The queen's filling up, and that's what a perfect queen should do. I'll probably end up creating some nukes and creating another queen out of these genetics, because this hive is doing so well that you like to keep those genetics. A good queen like this in your hives, it's building up this hive tremendously. So On the other side, likewise, look at a nice pattern of brood that you're seeing here. Some honey, some new nectar coming in, pollen. Those are all the things you're looking for recording. So you know by looking at this frame, you got a good queen. You don't have a drone layer. You know that nectar's coming in. You know that fresh pollen is coming in. And you know that they're healthy. There's no puncture marks, no sunken cappings. The white larva is crystalline white. No yellow, no brown. That's what you want to make sure that if you catch some of that, catch it early and you can turn it around in most cases. It's only in the case of American Firebrood there would be no turnaround. And we're also looking, you know, as we span, I'm looking at, do I see any mites on the bees? But we're going to do an alcohol wash here in a little bit. You don't always see mites, but occasionally when they get heavy, you see them on the backs of the bees, on the abdomens of the bees, and that tells you you're in trouble. That tells you that bees can't handle them. They're outnumbering themselves, and the mites need to be. See that smoke? I hadn't used it for a bit, but still smoking. Got good charcoals here. Look at that. Notice again, nice day. The bees are calm. They're gentle. Some people think my bees know me. They don't know you. They don't know you by smell. They don't know you by sight. They just want you to gently treat them kindly. Look at that. Wow. Nice full frame of brood. I'm looking at the same time for any swarm cells. See, notice at the bottom they have cups. See the cup right here? Sometimes that's the beginning when you start to see a lot of cups with white on the outside that they could be swarming. Here we see 2 cups. They look like upside down teacups. Those are just, they're there all the time in case they have to produce an emergency queen. If we should squeeze the queen and kill her, they'd immediately take some of the eggs and create a queen. So a queen is created with royal jelly by feeding her royal jelly. More pollen, more enzymes from the hypopharyngeal gland of the bees, the nurse bees. And you can see here the nice yellow pollen coming in, which is probably from some of the dandelion still. And the Russian olive likewise is that color, so I know by over the years. The green maple pollen is pretty much used up, although I see a little bit green, maple pollen there from the maple trees. So perfect, picture perfect frames. Let's go to the last couple of frames here. And on the outside, you tend to cut back on the brood because it's colder out there. It's hard to keep a cluster across 10 frames. So what you want to do is you're going to find your center 6. Here we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames of brood up here. Now, we'll see what's here. Sometimes they'll go right to the 9th frame on the outside, but usually it's all honey on the outside. But this hive has got loads of new larvae. I'm looking here and I can see it down in there, the new larva. So she's way out here on that 9th frame. And even on the other side, all eggs, full of eggs I don't know if we can catch the eggs in there. All in through here, you see little tiny rice grains. Those are the eggs. Very tough. Bring a magnifying glass if you have a hard time seeing them, and you can look in with a magnifier, and it magnifies the little tiny rice grain down there, and those are eggs. So she's out here somewhere. She's out close because the rest of it was all filled up with older larvae. So I know that the queen has been out here in the last few hours because some of those are day-old eggs in there, and it's possible we might see it, or even on this outside frame sometime. Or she might have headed down. Oftentimes when you're inspecting like this, the queen will move down. She's always vigilant and okay, this is a frame of honey that I gave them to sustain them when I put the package in. They haven't used too much. Obviously, there's some fresh honey up at the top that they brought in, nectar, and capped it over here. You can see the white versus the dark cappings, which is newer nectar with capped, that they've capped over. And I can see some nectar here not yet capped in the corner. So we're going to put this frame in. So now you've recorded all 10 frames, what you've got. You know where you are. You know that there's nothing wrong with this hive. You know they got a great queen. It's healthy. But you really don't know how many mites are in the hive. We're going to go down below and see. I'm just curious to see how my hive has advanced itself here and whether they've expanded down below yet. With 7 frames up here, they should be heading down because it's easier for them to keep baby bees warm up and down rather than across. All right, now as we go, I know this is going to be some weight. And if you're wondering why my biceps are so large, I lift a lot of top brood chambers that sometimes weigh 120 pounds. So as I lift here, ooh, I'd say 75 or 80 pounds right here. In my bottom chamber, I shook them, they were in the top, and you can see they're starting to work their way down, and look at the amount of bees. You can always look at a hive by the bees and how far out on the frames they are. That tells you whether it's a strong hive or not. Yeah, here's the queen we caught for you and took out of the hive. I put it in the jar so we could catch the queen. But just so you know, that's a drone laying queen. That queen is a drone layer. I took out a hive. She was laying all drones. It came from another hive, and I had to replace it. If I didn't, all my frames would be all drone brood, and that's what you don't want. So the sooner you catch a drone layer, and you can catch it usually within 2 or 3 weeks, the bullet shape. If you're all bullet shaped brood, then what you want to do is replace your queen, remove her. I kept her here because I wanted to give you folks a view of what a queen looks like. She's still alive. Here you can see she's moving. There she goes. There. She's hungry. I should give her some honey, and then we'll have Doug squeeze her. Let's give her a little honey here. I'm going to take right from this frame some of this delicious Russian olive honey. Look at it, you can see her going after it. Look at it, she's hungry. She's getting all from the edge there. But it's too bad she's a drone layer, because to a beehive, she's not going to continue to build that hive. The hive will die out, so. Now we're going to come into the second brood chamber here down below and see and record what we've got down here. Wow, look at that. Even down below, full of pollen and brood. Look at the amount of pollen they're bringing in here. And all brood in this frame here. And new nectar on the outside right here. They're putting the nectar in here into the lower chambers because they keep so much to feed the young baby bees. So once this is kind of full down below the 2 chambers, they'll go up into the honey super. and this one's ready for a honey super because we don't want to create a problem. If we didn't put a honey super on, this hive would become honey bound and pollen bound. As you can see, all the pollen down here and the nectar, and you have brood. But if they fill everything with honey and pollen in the bottom two chambers, most of you as new beekeepers won't have to worry about that. But eventually in the fall, you'll have to look for that. At the same time, they love their queen. I don't see any supersedure cells, which would be queen cells up here on the side of the frame where they're trying to replace her. And you can see here, they're keeping their brood warm. They're hovering over. That's a good colony, strong colony, taking care of their brood. So nurse bee right here, head in. Now we're gonna check the other frames here. Seeing we don't see the queen there, we're gonna continue on. You don't want to put your frame out like that if the queen is on it. She could get off and it's not good. So let's take this frame out. All new larvae here. And here's supersedure cell here, Doug. I'm going to pass over Doug. You notice this, a queen cup. But that's always there for an emergency. That's a supersedure. So if they need to replace the queen, in the bottom chamber, they always put the cup up high. Down at the bottom, the air coming in from the outside, they have a hard time keeping the queen cell warm. So if they make a supersedure cell, it's always up in the bottom brood chamber, up higher. But you can see the new larva. Look at all that larva there that is coming along. So I'm thrilled to see this hive. I haven't checked it here for about a week and a half, and they've come leaps and bounds with the warm weather. So you can see the frame that even below down here, this hive is ready for, and I'm gonna have to put another queen excluder on because you can see they're ready for another queen super, I should say, honey super. But they're healthy. I'm looking at the same time, do I see any greasy looking bees? Do I see any abnormal looking bees? They're all normal looking, they're not greasy looking. There's nothing abnormal about them. There are some viruses that can be viewed by looking, but in your case as new beekeepers, yeah, maybe the greasy bees, if you're starting to see a lot or a lot of bees twitching, then you may want to consider. Now let's go to the rest of the frames here. No puncture marks, no sunken cappings. This is beautiful. And like I said, not only are they good, they're well behaved. I love bees that do a lot of work and are also well behaved. Look at that. Wherever she's got room, she's putting larvae in there and pollen on the outsides, nectar up here in the corners. They're already capping it. That's for storing because they're going to be raising brood all summer. You always want to see. You always want to have a minimum of 8 to 9 frames open for brood. Remember that. Good rule to follow. At all times, you want 8 to 9 frames open for brood. To keep the numbers game intact, that's what you're looking for. So when you do your analysis, your evaluation, make sure you have 8 or 9 frames open for brood rearing.
Eggs.
Tip it into the sun. Still not getting it. Turn it right.
Now as we come down here,
There we go. Hold it right there.
We're going to see some baby bees hatching here on this frame here. If we can zero in, if Doug would put that frame right back in here, we're going to watch a bee hatch. Exciting, isn't it? We're going to watch 2 bees actually hatching. Doug is going to hold this frame and we're going to point out the process they go through. It's a 35-minute process from the time the first puncture mark occurs. Now, if we can close up on here, see the little mandibles chewing their way out of that cell? See it? I'm going to help it along and speed up the 35-minute process. Have to be careful not to do brain damage. Now here she comes. Here she comes, lady. Ooh, look at her. I'm going to help her out. It's a girl. Look at those tiny little eyes. Look at that tiny little body. Finding her way in the world. Look at the bees all touching her with their mandibles, with their antennae, as she crawls around, a little baby bee. You know, I deliver more babies than any obstetrician. Baby bees, that is. And here's another one. Look at cutting around. See how they go all around to get the capping. They cut the capping away with their mandibles. We're going to lift that capping up for her. Pull it away. First time she sees the world. Look at them all coming to her. Checking out. Look at this adult bee. Look at them all coming to greet her. She's coming in to meet her sisters. We're going to help this one. It's a 35-minute. I've watched it with many times. I've watched the natural process to chew her way out and get herself out. They're all coming to greet us. See, I can't even get her out. I have to move them away. Come on, girls. Come on, girls. Move away. Let's help her out a little bit here. It's a gentle procedure. The bee thinks as I'm hurting her. Look at her. Look at her fighting me off. There she comes. Oh, look at how hard she's working. Look at those first 2 legs pulling her way out. Look at her. Look at her gently pulling her way out. There he is. Look at that. Look at her struggle. Look at it. Look at that struggle. Look at those little eyes. Look at these second legs now pulling out. Look at her cleaning her mouth parts there. And here she is. It's a girl. Look at the adult bee with her. Now she goes around to investigate, greet her sisters. In an hour she'll be at work, cleaning or doing something within the hive. She flexed her wings for the first time. Isn't that exciting? You can watch that process. Here's one. We're not going to help any others, but here's one struggling to come out. She's chewed off the capping. She says, "Help me, help me." But you watch the birthing process here of honeybees. And like I say, it's exciting to watch a hive. It's like a mini little world. And you see how they all work together to feed the young, to keep them warm, guarding the hive. The guard bees, they have their job. There's the foragers. After 2 weeks, they become foragers. You can watch them coming in and out of the hive with the pollen. If we go right to the foragers here, out here, with the camera, out here, the foragers coming in and out with the food that they need. See all those bees coming in, they've got nectar, pollen, and they're bringing it in so that the nurse bees can feed the baby bees. A warm day, so a good number of bees coming in and out of that hive. And here we go, even to the outside, man. I could easily make a split on this hive right now. Ooh, even out to the eighth frame out there with brood and hatching bees here too, we see. So these, she'll be ready to, in the young larva where it's hatched out, you can see here. See the larva hatching, the larva right there. That's 8 frames out. So we're talking 7 up above, 10. This is frame 11 with larva and hatched brood and larva. And we'll go one more frame. Frame 9 is all honey. All glistening honey and pollen and mostly all worker bees. As we mentioned in the beginning, not many drones yet, but once they all hatch in that hive, we'll have a well-balanced hive with 4 or 5% drones. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take and do an alcohol wash. We're going to
Ken,
check.
I'm going to do an alcohol wash as a separate video so that we can just use that
Yes.
all the time.
So we're going to do an alcohol wash, but just to end it before we shut down here is as we looked at this hive, we saw many things. You as a beekeeper that just starting this, the learning process is going to be steep. But don't get discouraged. Keep going in week by week. You'll learn. You'll learn a hands-on learning that you can't replicate anywhere, because the richness of the learning and to see how bees work together to make one strong colony. It takes teamwork. I often say if humans could only be this good and work together, we'd be a more successful society instead of fighting, and we all tend to want to be individualistic, get ahead of the next guy. The bees don't say, hey, she's not working, I'm not going to work. They all do their part. And that's what makes this a successful colony. Of course, this is my hive, so I model for them. A hard-working beekeeper in here, checking them, giving them food if they need, giving them a new queen if they should need it, and doing what they might not be able to do. Without you, bees, in many cases, can't survive because of the many challenges that they've got. Tracheal mites, varroa mites, tie beetle, pesticides, bacterial diseases. They're challenged more than ever. In the last 25 years, bees are being challenged more and more. And if we don't work with them and help them, we're not going to have any bees, because in the wild we don't find many bees left. So we need to do all that we can to help the bees. It used to be 85% bees, 15% beekeeper. Now it's a 50-50 proposition. You've got to be in here and be a beekeeper, not a bee haver. They need you more than ever, so don't neglect them. Get into your hive on a weekly basis, a nice day, from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon is a great time to do that. And like I say, if you have any questions, feel free to call me. I get 20 or 30 calls. I won't answer in emails because they're too long. I have to give a long answer. It's easier to talk on the phone, so give me a call. Let's chat, and you could ask me any questions you want, and I'll be happy to answer them. And put in for an inspection. We'll probably be starting in June, so I can come out and spend a half hour with you going through your hive and letting you know what's good, what's not so good, what mistakes you've made, and that way you can learn that way as well. So with that, I want to shut down the hive opening and hope you got something out of it, and now you saw close up what goes on in a beehive. Thank you very much.